Hi there YouTube, Mr. Livery here. We're on the ground at Port Augusta, up on the top of the Spencer Gulf. And today we have a R44 helicopter. This is very early alpha freeware helicopter from Road Pilot Sim. RSP I think it is. Yep, the Robinson R44. Piston engine helicopter. This is version 1.0. Think of this as a very early basic helicopter. Couple of things that don't work on it. They are working on it as we speak. They say expect it's about 5% complete. Couple of things we need to do before we start is once you've installed the helicopter, and it's available in the sim like this. Once you've entered the sim, as we have here, you'll need to open up your Microsoft Flight Simulator folder, wherever that might be on your sim, in your computer, sorry, and click on Community, come down to RSP, the R44, that one there, RSP R44, double click, come into Airland and FS, or Airland FS, and open that application up. Without doing that, the aircraft simply won't fly, basically. So I get rid of that folder, and I'm going to move this up to about 70%-ish. I found that these need to be pulled back a little bit, so I'll go to about 80% on these. I'm not using the relaxing of the cycle. I find that's really weird to fly with, but you might find it's a bit different for you. But yeah, basically once this program is open, this helicopter will be able to fly. Without it open, it will simply sit on the ground at full power. So that's something to think about. So with that done, the aircraft itself flies pretty well. There's a few instruments inside here that you'll find don't work properly. In particular, our artificial horizon pitch is backwards, so you can assume that the artificial horizon is not working. We'll just write that up as vacuum instruments are not functional. So in here basically the altimeter will work, the engine and rotor kind of work, manifold pressure. Turn bank coordinator, I think it works pretty well, and the airspeed indicator will work. Yeah, but this thing not so much. Also down here you'll find it's quite difficult to change radio frequencies because the button to change from primary to standby is misaligned and you won't be able to hit it. So what we'll do instead is do the old .com1, then write in whatever frequency we want. In this case we'll be wanting the CTAF here in Port Augusta, which is 126.9. Click that in, and we have 126.9 on COM1. A little bit annoying, but you know, consider this an early alpha. The aircraft's R44 burns about 57 litres of fuel every hour, which is, you know, helicopter. A Cessna 150 was burning about 12. So today's flight's about 36 minutes down to Whyalla. Once we take off, we'll be heading out to runway 15 end, which is 2 hour left currently. It's only 1 mile. Then we'll track to the air highway, almost directly west. From the air highway, we go to Corona, the intersection of Corona Road. And there's an interesting little place there that used to be a detention centre. From Corona Road, we'll head along down to where the Lincoln Highway splits off from the air highway, and we'll follow the Lincoln further south. Passing Whyalla. This is literally a bend in the road, and from a bend in the road we track to Whyalla Jenkins, and then Whyalla itself. So full time, about 36 minutes, we'll be burning quite a lot of fuel. Some 30 litres of fuel in this 36-minute flight. I've got all the winds set from the forecasts. We are cruising at about 1,800, between 1,500 and 1,800. So we're in this sector here. Obviously these last two ones, the wind from 330, so from kind of northwest. So there's Port Augusta. We're taking off from down here, tracking along the runway until we get to the end of it, and then we'll turn west and then hit the air highway. From the air highway, just tracking along the air highway, probably just slightly to the northwest of it. Until we hit that road, Corinna. Hi there, Sharko. You're at school. That sounds like an American thing. Or maybe states that aren't Victoria. Oh well. There's the Tanks Rex area and the Lincoln Gap with the Lincoln Highway continuing on. And the air highway turning to the right. We continue down the air, on the Lincoln, sorry. There's a couple of other interesting bits of information here. We have R zones, that's restricted area, around Tregalina. And here we have an R304A and 304B with this big explosion symbol. So I come down here to the Cultana airspace diversion matrix, which is basically what this area is. That's all IFR stuff, we're not IFR. So VFR, D261NX, surface to 3000, Army RCO Cultana. That is an access lane, so we can see this access lane, basically VFR civilian traffic's allowed to fly down the D261, which is directly over the Lincoln Highway. Brad Porter from Port Lincoln, nice to see. Yeah, we'll probably be down there next flight, so next week sometime. Here we have Army RCTO BFTA, surface to as high as they want, firing and military flying. So military helicopters, fighter jets, firing, which is, you know, guns, cannons, that kind of thing. Over here they have literal artillery pieces that fire live artillery shells. Yeah, great fun. So don't fly into that area. We'll stick on to the D261, which is this lane of entry that you see on the flight plan here. So here's the flight plan in, what's that thing called? Sky Vector. Tracking along the runway, down the highways, and then through this lane of entry with the military danger and restricted areas either side. We'll continue on until we hit that bend in the road, and then we'll fly over past Whyalla, so we don't fly over the town. Port Augusta. We have an AWIS, we have a CTAF, a runway which we won't really be using apart from just flying along it. It's useful for the aircraft to have a bit of a run up because it's not the most powerful aircraft in the world. None of these towering takeoff kind of ideas. So pick up the AWIS. Say 150.
Automated Weather Information Service, Port Augusta Airport. Time 2258 Zulu. Wind 340 degrees magnetic at 90 knots. Visibility 25 kilometers. Present weather. No significant weather. Cloud clear below 10,000 feet. Temperature 23. Dew point -1. QNH 1008 hectopascals. Rainfall last 10 minutes nil.
Hello Paul, hope you're well. So yeah, wind is from the north, was it? Yeah, a little bit north, which is good because that's the direction that we want to travel along to get to the air highway. I'll switch back to that, I guess. So yeah, we're up at Port Augusta, we're going to Whyalla. It's only one stop and it'll take about 40 minutes. Okay. Let's step back outside the aircraft for a little while. This is a repaint by CW Lemoyne Mover. You may recognize the name. There is a YouTube channel. Pretty good American, but unfortunately there's no VH repaints yet, so we eagerly await something with VH written on the tail. We're actually going to be flying with a VH call sign of a real Robinson Romeo India Zulu, which I'm going to write down because I will forget it. A couple of other things on the aircraft. We have openable doors, so just click on the door handle, that should pop open the doors on that side. Of course you can pop the doors open on the opposite side, like that. Now as far as startup is concerned, the aircraft is very basic and none of the systems really work. This GPS will work once we get it started, but as far as starting is concerned, this is a Control E job. I'm afraid. Press Control E, the engine will start up. And just take a look at this. If this doesn't show any rotation in the rotor, that means that your program hasn't started properly, the Airland FS, and you'll need to start that program up. So let's get started. Control E. Hello Crosswind, hope you're well. Alright, so we've started up, we've got engine power, I'm showing oil pressure and oil temperatures. Temperature's currently in the green, pressure's just a little bit low. I've got about a quarter of a tank, nothing in the auxiliary. Let's pull that back a little bit. Yep, 126.9er. You can see the frequency there, 1269er. And we'll make our broadcasts. Port Augusta traffic, Robinson Romeo India Zulu is departing from the field. We'll be tracking along runway 33, departing via the air highway. Traffic Port Augusta. And from here on we're basically flying a helicopter. Very simple helicopter. We need to go to full power on the engines. You do that just by lifting the collective a little bit. And as we begin adding collective, you will of course start needing to feed in left rudder. Otherwise the aircraft will corkscrew on the ground. Now before we lift off, I just want to share a little bit of documentation here. This aircraft has a few things that happen in the Airland FS that don't happen in other helicopters on the sim. You can do auto rotations, you can do vertical auto rotations from a hover, which isn't really the best way to do things. You can enter a vortex ring state, where if you're descending too fast, you'll enter your own, air that's being disturbed, and you'll lose lift, which means you'll descend faster, which means you'll get further into the vortex ring state, which makes it harder to leave the vortex ring state, makes it easier to get into worse vortex ring state. So basically a helicopter's version of a stall. Blowback and transverse flow. As said, when you're flying pretty slowly, it'll roll the helicopter to the right because of different velocity between the retreating part of the blade and the forward. It's similar to retreating blade stall, but at low speed instead of high speed. You get ground effect as well, and ground instability due to turbulence between the ground and your blades. V&E is basically when the retreating blade stall happens, and yeah, wind will affect you as well. Weight displacement, all of that fun. It's all simulated. Just going to check if my audio is okay to go, or if we're too loud. I think we'll reduce the volume a little bit. It sure does take a little while to get used to. It's a quite a difficult little helicopter to fly. Very different to the H135. And we are away. Gonna hover taxi out to the runway. Keeping things nice and slow. Port Augusta traffic, Romeo India Zulu, Robinson R44, hover taxiing runway 33, will depart from the intersection. She can be a little bit twitchy, and she can also roll and keep some inertia going. It does feel significantly different to the 135. Okay, all my lights are on. Port Augusta traffic, Romeo India Zulu, Robinson R44 entering runway 33, departure to the west. Okay, putting a bit more power on, and we'll use the runway as a kind of run up, get some transitional lift going, and then we can climb away. Now the aircraft will basically keep on moving all the time. So if your stick is still, the aircraft will be rolling, pretty much. Got to keep your sticks moving. Try and keep the aircraft pointed in the direction it's travelling, especially once you're up at like 80 knots like we are. We're at 400 feet. There's the highway. And we're starting to turn around to intercept, to travel along the highway. Cool, time is 08, we're at the highway. Minutes, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it should intercept the next, the road, time 12. I'm just going to reduce my speed a little bit. Got to keep that climb going at about 1,500, so I'll keep my collective where it is. Paul Newman saying 510 COVIDs in Melbourne today. A couple of funny things happening in Melbourne this weekend. Because we're hitting 70% people being vaccinated, people who have been vaccinated can meet up with 5 adults outside. Picnics, exercise, whatever. Have to be from one household though, so functionally that's 2 adults unless you're married couples, in which case it's 4 adults and randomly an adult child, I suppose. Still not allowed in other people's homes, which is a pity. And only one other household to be met at any given time. So no picnics with all of your single friends. Time is 10. We should be seeing the other road coming in soon. That's the bend. Karuna Road. How will they know that everyone is following the rules? Well, they won't, will they? But, you know, I'm sure the police will be around. And if the police see something that looks suspicious, I'm sure they will, you know, do what police do. So we have 45 minutes of reserve fuel, just based on burning 57 litres an hour. 38-minute flights, I've called it 40 minutes, we have 2 extra minutes up our sleeves, and then 45 minutes reserve. The good thing about a helicopter, which is also the bad thing about helicopters, is they burn the same amount of fuel regardless if you're going fast or slow. So going fast is actually saving fuel. Driving from Port Augusta to Melbourne, that's like more than 12 hours. It's got to be at least, I don't know, to be honest. Unless you're talking about how far from Melbourne to Melbourne. But if it's Port Augusta to Melbourne, it's quite a distance. 15 hours, something like that, at a guess. I'm sure someone can Google it. We're past Karuna Road. Continuing along the highway here. Another 4 minutes, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Sorry, I'm not writing it in my spreadsheet, I'm just writing it on a piece of paper in front of me. It's hard to write in a spreadsheet when you're trying to fly a helicopter with no autopilot. Just put that out there. It's about 12 hours to Adelaide, and this is almost 8 hours out of Adelaide. Okay, we're about to come into that interesting area of the world where there's a military base over there and more military base over there, and as long as we're below 3,000 feet we're okay. 3,000 feet above us is probably like military helicopters, fighter jets, that kind of stuff flying over the top. Over there there's some cannons that could be firing artillery shells. And over there there's probably soldiers, you know, shooting guns, driving jeeps and tanks and stuff. Great fun. And this is where the air highway splits off. And Lincoln Highway continues on south. So we'll continue along the Lincoln Highway. And what I want to do is cross over the road at the moment so that we're on the east side of the road. Then there'll be a funky thing where it does this nice little, almost a chicane further up. And at that point we ought to swap over to the other side. But there's the intersection with the air highway and the Lincoln Highway going straight through. And the good thing about the frequencies is everyone's on the same frequency out here. As I said, we planned to be at 80 knots and 1,800 here. So I'll climb up another 200 feet. And we can ignore this instrument here, just don't look at it. It is broken. It's known as it's broken. It's a little bit like that Cessna 150 we flew to Lethbridge. It also had a broken artificial horizon. One thing you want to do with a helicopter is don't take your hand off the pedals or your stick, because you need them all the time. Time is 17. We're at Lincoln. Next one is Whyalla. Time 20. At time 20 we should remain far to the west of the road. So we've got the bend in the road, coming up on time 19er. There it is. By the time we're in the middle of that bend, we should be at time 20, and we'll skip over to the western side. Getting a little bit of bouncing around. I suspect that's the difference between my pedal position and the direction I'm travelling. Basically what happens there is that our tail rotor is trying to push us to the left and the stabilizer is trying to push us to the right. You get this kind of little wobble. So you just need to readjust where your pedals are to equalize where the fixed stabilizer is to where your tail rotor is trying to push it. So if you find yourself flopping around the sky, move your feet. Bit hard to fly from that position. There we go, oversped. Took me a couple of seconds to get into an overspeed. It's like, let's go outside for a look. Boom. Back to 80 knots. At 2,000 feet, we need to get in. .28 will be the next position. In about 5 minutes time we should see Whyalla, the township, in front of us. Township of Whyalla is mostly about mining iron ore and processing it into steel. A little bit of farming as well, but most of it is just the mining site, the steel mill and the port. All the suburbs in the township of Whyalla are named Whyalla something. And the very far western suburb is Whyalla Jenkins. I believe it's Jenkins. I wrote it down. Yeah, it is Jenkins. I know Whyalla Norrie's another suburb, but everything's a Whyalla blah blah. Double-barreled names. Whyalla Norrie, Whyalla Jenkins, Whyalla Barton. The only exception to that naming convention is the suburb that the airport itself is in, which doesn't have the word Whyalla in it, even though it's Whyalla Airport. I believe it's named after its Aborigine name. That's a Lincoln Highway there. So we'll maintain our altitude now. About 10 miles out now. Traffic Whyalla, Robinson 44, Romeo India Zulu is 10 miles to the north of the field, inside the lane of entry. We're at 1,800 feet. We'll be tracking in to land on the helipads via means of circuit runway 17, traffic Whyalla. Ah, it didn't give him a timing, did me? 28, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And traffic Whyalla, Romeo India Zulu, time, estimating the time in circuit will be 35. Will be for at 80 knots, not 60 like we just ended up. There's the township of Whyalla. Whyalla airfield is to the south of the township. So I'll just skirt around Whyalla Jenkins, which is as far furthest west, and then we'll just continue along the south end of the town. No need to fly over the centre of the town. We're noisy. Still 9 in the morning there. I don't think they're in lockdown in South Australia, but you know, I'm sure someone would like a nice quiet morning. Dark clouds up there. Ended up with a bit of flap back there, but we're out of it. No, I don't have any multiplayer on. I'm just on Vatsim. So seeing other traffic that aren't on Vatsim while you're on Vatsim is not the best idea. So we want to enter the traffic pattern at 800 feet because we're a helicopter. Start to descend now. That's Whyalla Jenkins over there, that little piece of ground. underperforming on our speed a little bit. That'll cost us in time. And settling in at 800 feet. Blasting through 800 feet. Back in. Got to remember that forward direction of travel is about there, not on the post. Especially as we slow down, the aircraft won't maintain its rigid straight ahead quite as well. Because obviously as you slow down, there's less aerodynamic pressure on the stabilizer fin. You need to counter that with tail rotor. Runway's in sight. Two minutes to circuit. Current time being 33. Whyalla traffic, Romeo India Zulu, Robinson 44 is entering downwind. Sorry, entering downwind runway 35 at 800 feet. We'll then join circuit to fly over the runway and land at pad. Traffic Whyalla. So at 60 knots, that's our runway here. That one, not this one. This one is not even a proper runway, but that's runway 35. We're pretty much on the downwind now. That's a little bit too far to the west. Come around and then make an approach as if the runway, as if we're a, you know, proper aircraft with our doors closed and stuff. So here at the CTAF, basically helicopters should fly a pattern like any other aircraft onto a runway, and then you hover taxi down the runway and vacate. None of this oblique flying straight at pads and stuff. No, when I'm flying on Vatsim, I'm just using the Vatsim servers. So you don't want to be seeing other aircraft that aren't physically there in Vatsim. Turn off any multiplayer, turn off any AI traffic. So that if you see an aircraft, you know it's actually on the Vatsim server and you need to be talking to them. Well, traffic, Romeo into Zulu, Robinson 44 is turning base, runway 35. Keep your circuits tighter than fixed wing aircraft would be. You're going slower than they are. You're lower than they are. And a helicopter's ability to glide is much smaller. While the traffic, Romeo into Zulu, Robinson 44, final runway 35. I'll be hover taxiing to the helipad. Entered a little bit of retreating blade stall there. No, it wasn't that, it was the other one. That 35 knot effect. You heard the stall come in. Anyway, we're back down to a hover taxi speed. Well, traffic, Romeo into Zulu, Robinson 44 has vacated runway 35. I think we'll go right about there, that position. It gets a bit squirrely. I am flying sideways, that was not intentional. Bit better now. And there we go. Just roll the collective is at idle. Get the governor down as well, I think. Not sure you can do it from the actual physical thing down there. Thank you, Spencer. Let's get some lights off. And I believe it is There we go. Control Shift E. Now these blades will spin, continue to spin for quite a bit actually. They do eventually slow down to a stop. You can see them slowly starting to spin down. Don't know how long they take. Minutes. Anyhow, that was the Robinson R44. New helicopter. It's only released a couple of days ago. Yeah, download it. You can see the links down below. They are the Robinson R44 Raven 2 project by RSP. Just come down to their download page like that. Hit the download button. We didn't see them come to a stop, but there we go. Our rotors have stopped. Once you have the aircraft installed, you need to go into this N536SH, which is in your community folder. Roll down to RSP R44 in the community folder. N536SH, that's your program there. And once the program is open, you end up with that window. You can make it, change the difficulty level. You can go all the way back down to casual pilot, which will be useful if you're using an Xbox controller and don't have any control over the aircraft at all. Up to advanced pilot and professional pilot. I'm still down a little bit, but yeah, good helicopter. As I said, it's a fairly new release. Some of the systems on the aircraft don't work yet. Starting an engine, for instance, is the old Control E. Most of these buttons don't really work or do anything. But, yeah, good aircraft. I like it. Anyhow, short flight today, 45 minutes, and we're done. I think I'll leave it there. Couldn't hear me at Unicom? That's because I wasn't broadcasting on Unicom. I was broadcasting on the CTAF frequency, which is written on here. On CTAF 126.9. I can't broadcast on two radios at the same time on this aircraft. I can on other ones, but this one doesn't have the capacity to do that yet. So it's either going to be on the CTAF or on the Unicom 1228. I know the Americans like their 1228. But here in Australia, these CTAF frequencies are published for free, and these airports don't have air traffic control even in the real world. So why would we say, if there's no air traffic control on this aircraft that has never and will never ever have air traffic control ever, not just on Vatsim but also in the real world, well, how would an airport that doesn't have air traffic control have air traffic control? It doesn't. So yeah, I was using my CTAFs. That said, Vatsim says to monitor 122.8. Doesn't say anything about broadcasting on it. And I was monitoring. I can prove that. 122.8 is on my COM 2. So if anybody broadcasted on that, I would hear it. Well, while the aircraft was still powered. So anyway, yeah, highly recommended. Great aircraft, pretty fun to fly. It's got a lot of effects on it. As you saw, as we were coming along the runway there, I was starting to get some of those effects. We had the stall warning horn go off on us, so that would have been which blowback, transverse flow effect. Yeah, that one. So we got a bit of blowback as we were along the runway there. Yeah, very nice helicopter. And once they start putting more systems in, it will develop quite well. Anyhow, that is the R44 on Vatsim. I have been Musical Aviator, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.